right. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Those Muckrakers. I'm Pete.
And I'm Pat.
And I don't know, has there been more news than regular, or is it kind of the same, like, just a bunch of shit happen?
It's just a bunch of shit happened. Like, I think this week actually had a lot less news than last week. But we do have Manafort pleading out, so that's, like, got people in a buzz right now.
Well, the thing was, he's already going to do, what is it, 8 to 10 years?
It's, I have so many notes on this. It's like 300 months. So, yeah, a good bit.
So he's going to do some time, and he had to know he was going to do a lot of time.
210 to 262 months.
Yeah, so he had to know that and even though he's pleading, I still don't know how much time he's going to get for this investigation either.
We don't know. The sentencing was just about to happen, but then he pleaded out before it occurred.
Well,
so now they're pushing that way back.
Well, the sentencing
we don't know.
The sentencing wasn't going to happen. The trial was going to happen.
There was going to be a sentencing, and then there's going to be another trial, then a retrial of the other stuff. But there's not going to be a retrial on those 10 hung jury counts because he's pled guilty to all of them. So that's done.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's effectively done. It just depends on, I guess, how much he is going to give them and how much he can give them.
We were going to start on Trump's notes, but let's start on the Manafort thing. I think that's a good starting point for this week.
So old Paul Manafort.
If anyone out there doesn't know, Paul Manafort was Trump's campaign manager, aka not just the fucking coffee boy like Trump keeps trying to say. You know, it had nothing to do with me. It's someone I barely knew. Didn't really interact with him at all. He keeps saying that with like Flynn and everyone else that's going to prison forever because they're fucking criminals. Everyone in Trump's little orbit is going to jail, and there's just one little dot that would connect them all to him. And Mueller definitely knows where that dot is, but he's never going to reveal it until he's ready to move on Trump, right? Because you can't just have a criminal sitting in the Oval Office, like a proven criminal in the Oval Office, because that will throw us into a constitutional crisis.
Well,
so to avoid that, what they did with President Nixon is they always referred to him as like the unindicted individual one or something like that, which is what Trump is now, unindicted individual one. His name is starting to show up on the convictions.
I know that
he's just not being named.
I know that you disagree with me a little bit, but I feel like Fox is already pulling back on the stick a little bit.
I do disagree.
Yeah, it seems to me at least that they're kind of coming out and like they're not carrying Trump's water anymore. You know, at least right now, like they've thrown a couple things out there. So I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe they're hedging their bets.
I've seen that song and dance from Fox before, right?
Yeah.
Like whenever things look really, really grim, they will admit, okay, this isn't quite as good as we would ideally like for it to be. But then, like a second later, it's like, well, everyone's not paying attention, so let's go right back to Democrats are awful, Trump's amazing.
Yeah, well, like, so I've been reading.
They go back and forth like that a lot, and also until Lumpy Hannity starts actually turning against him, which is never going to happen because he's going to prison with him.
Well, what's interesting, so I've been reading Bob Woodward's new book, Fear, Inside the Trump White House, which it's fascinating, but it's also boring because it's a lot of stuff we kind of already knew, you know?
Yeah, he's saying things that we've been telling you on this podcast for the last 33 episodes.
Like, he just kind of hands out jobs to people without vetting them or thinking about policy. Also, he fucking hates Manafort.
Does he hate Manafort? No,
yeah,
I didn't know.
There's a bunch of conversations where he's like,
Trump whines so much about they're treating Manafort so unfair.
He hates him. There's in the very beginning of the book there, he's constantly like, I think Manafort was at a dinner and he says, "Get out of here! You're never going back on TV. You got no energy." And then when Manafort walks away, he just goes like, "What a loser! That guy's such a loser. I mean, look at him." Like, so yeah, he doesn't like Manafort. He thinks Manafort's a loser. I don't know why he's defending him. Like, he clearly hates him. I think it's because, like, you know, it means that he's getting closer to being removed from office.
Yeah.
But, like,
I mean, I hope he is.
It's important, though, like we said, that it comes from Woodward, because Bob Woodward and, I don't know the other guy's name, Bernstein.
Bernstein.
Yeah, they were the ones that, like, broke the Nixon case. And, like, Woodward's written, like, 1 million books. And he's always, his journalistic integrity is as good as it can be. Like, he's the only one that could have written this book because he uses, I can't remember the journalistic term where you use a lot of anonymous sources, but like they agree to talk to you, but they don't want to put their name on it.
Yeah, it's just called using anonymous sources.
But there was he called it a journalistic technique. But yeah, that's the only way you can get all these people to talk candidly because they don't want to lose their jobs. So the other
Yeah.
thing I realized reading his book,
It
so
is amazing because I've watched a lot of interviews with him this week, and he says that whenever he's interviewing people, a lot of the times they'll say, I'll tell you this, but it really needs to be off the record. And he's like, no, I'm not going to take this off the record. And he
yeah.
says, they'll, with one exception the entire time, they'll usually like fidget and then say, well, you know what, I'll tell you anyway, but just don't attach my name to it. And then they'll keep going.
Well, what's interesting is like Trump tried to attack him and said he trashed the book and called it lies, and he goes, "I'll write the real book." But everyone knows that Trump doesn't write his books. Like he just has somebody
Right.
ghostwrite him. Like
Yeah, and the ghostwriters have all come out and said, yeah, and Trump's a freaking moron. These books are really hard to write. It's pure fiction, though.
yeah. So, but like he hands jobs out to people. Like he doesn't vet them. He doesn't think if they would do a good job. Like he's just handing them out willy nilly to people that are
That,
unqualified. But the
that's why we have all these charges of nepotism right now, because he just hires his own family and friends and sticks them in positions wherever.
or people he likes with quote unquote big energy.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, though, so I couldn't figure out for the longest time, like, why are these people just so on fire to like just support whatever he does? And I realized it's because he's given people jobs that A, never would have gotten them, but B, he's their only access to power.
Yeah, a lot of these people that are working for the Trump administration are has-beens and washed-up losers, people who basically their time had come and gone, and they are in the sewer drain of history, and then along came Trump, and they found their last breath of power before they get flushed down the toilet of life.
There
And
was,
that would be people like, including Giuliani. Do you think Giuliani would be on TV this
dude,
much in
dude,
today's age without Trump?
he hates Giuliani too.
Good. Everyone
Yeah.
should hate Giuliani.
Like he said some shit to Giuliani in this book that made me feel bad for Giuliani. When the tape hit about like you can go out and do anything to women when you're famous.
Yeah.
Giuliani went on the air in defense of Trump.
You mean when Trump admitted to committing sexual assault on tape, and this was aired
Yes.
repeatedly before the election, and he still won because of Russian interference,
So
as we now know it.
Giuliani goes on and he goes, as a Catholic, you ask for repentance and you receive absolution. You don't do it again because Trump apologized. And so when Trump's at this meeting with him, Trump goes, "They made you look like a baby, like a big baby. They just dressed they put baby in new diapers on the air. You're never going on the air again. They made you look awful." So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking,
Trump projects a lot. That's probably how he felt about himself right at that moment.
well, so
Because they made him apologize. That's the only thing Trump has ever apologized
yeah,
for, by
and
the
he
way,
regrets it,
is
I
that
think.
Access
Yeah.
Hollywood tape.
Well-
Yeah, he does. He does, and he's walked his apology back since then.
Well, what made me mad is like I'm thinking. So as I'm listening to this, I'm putting myself in Giuliani's place, and I'm like, if I had to go on the news and on air apologize or talk about an idiot who had bragged about sexual assault, and then they were like, "You look stupid," I would have been like, you know what? You look fucking stupid. You're an idiot. Like no one just says that. Like they seem to have an infinite amount of patience, or they want power so badly they're willing to
They-
they're willing to
the latter.
grovel.
Yeah, the latter. They're willing to grovel for power.
So Kellyanne Conway. So the thing she said to me was like, sorry,
Freaking-
not said to me. The thing Kellyanne Conway said to Trump, because if she said anything to me, I'd be like, "Can you go away?" And
Well,
just
the thing Kellyanne Conway famously said, "Tales from the crypt."
well, when she got in, he was having a
Her famous
meltdown.
quote.
He was having a meltdown during some interview, or is mad about the lighting and like, "Oh, I'm not going to pay these camera people," and this, that, and the other. And she's like, so she kind of takes the reins and she goes, "Mr. Trump, I don't see myself as your equal, and I'll do whatever you need me to do, and I'll never call you by your first name." And I'm like, "Oh my God, my liege lord in heaven! Like, why would you debase yourself to such a witless idiot?"
I mean, what's the pay like?
Even then, man, like I would
500,000 a year, I would definitely say that.
I would say it out of the side of my face while just giving up the goods to every news organization I could. I'd be like, "Hey, you guys want me to wear a wire? I'll wear a secret little microphone inside the Trump White House. I'll get him
Yeah.
to yeah, like I just man, like just ugh, like I get that
Yeah,
like
it is really gross though.
yeah, I get that like if your boss is in front of you, you kind of have to go, "Okay, I understand you're the boss," but to just be like, "Sir,
Hmm.
I'll love you forever, and you're just, you know what? I'm not your equal, and you are I would do anything." It's like, what? That's,
I, I, I bet you dollars to donuts. That's how. That's the first thing Lumpy says every time Trump calls him at night over a
I'm,
bacon double
I'm
cheeseburger.
not your equal. I love you so much. Like, Jesus,
Yep.
man.
Yep. Yep.
What's funny is it's also the Bob Woodward book is kind of like a walk back through memory lane because I'm like, oh, I remember Chris Christie. Oh, I remember I remember the transition team. Oh
I
yeah.
totally forgot about Chris Christie. Yeah, he thought that he was gonna get in big with Trump, and then he didn't.
Well,
'Cause he's a sad loser.
he made Trump mad because apparently he was trying to set up the transition team and he needed money for it. And then Trump was like, "What are you doing? We don't need a transition team. You're stealing money from me." Like he got mad at him for like doing his job.
Yeah, did you know that Trump? I think this is also in the book. Trump tried to just shut down like our entire missile defense system because he is upset that it cost $1 billion a year. So
Yeah.
he's like, we don't need this. It's just costing us money. Shut it down. And they're like, sir, I'm going to tell you this as politely as possible, but if we shut this down, it would cause World War III and be the end of America's
Well,
civilization.
so the reason that would cause World War III and what was interesting was so he was really mad that we were spending a bunch of money to kind of basically prop up South Korea, as we always have, in trade deals and stuff with them because they are our ally in a place where we have few allies, and it goes back to the Cold War. So we need a presence there. He wanted to shut down the missile defense system, end our trade deal with South Korea, and then like just for lack of a better word, like evacuate all the military personnel families and stuff we were supporting.
Yeah.
And they had to go, no, because the North Koreans are going to see that as an imminent strike. If they see you moving civilian families out of South Korea, they're going to think
Yeah.
it's going to start World War III. Like,
That's wonderful.
but like,
He's so spectacularly dumb. Oh, did you know that was it Gaddafi?
yeah,
Someone that Trump wanted to have assassinated?
not
And he like
Gaddafi. I
got
think it was the Ashar al-Assad, the Syrian president.
yeah, and he was like, and so you're gonna do this, right? And I think it was Mattis said, yes, sir, I'll get right on that. Hung up the phone and looked at like the guy next to him and said, we're not doing any of that.
That's the
And
only.
that was the end of it.
That's his only instinct that they said they stopped him from doing that. I go, you know what? If we had put a couple of missiles in Assad, I wouldn't have really been that sad. But the bigger problem is you don't want someone like him leading you into another foreign war that like you saw how bad it
Yeah,
was with it has been with Afghanistan and Iraq with no real
yeah,
exit strategy.
the
Uh,
endless fucking war we've been in.
yeah, that assassinating him would have just created a power vacuum. Although I don't know if it's much worse with him still alive, but that
Fun
but
fact, though, what was the original death toll of 9/11? 2,000 people.
something around that number. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know that Trump has done that and a half with the people he's killed in Puerto Rico now
Yeah,
through his sheer
exactly.
grotesque negligence.
So that's another.
Trump is actually worse than 9/11, and he still gets
Yeah.
to be president.
Well,
He's
that's
murdered more Americans than Al Qaeda terrorists.
well, that's the other thing too
Well,
is
in planes.
he
on that
recently in the
day.
news denied that the 3,000 dead in Puerto Rico were real, and said the
Yes,
Democrats had inflated the numbers. And I'm like,
to make him look bad. And that's actually something that everyone's been attacking him on. Like even Paul Ryan was saying, that doesn't, that's crazy. Why would he even say that?
okay, so I'll tell you why they're backing up. Okay, so Florida is a pretty important state, right?
Yeah,
So. I'm sure that most of those 3,000 people had hopefully have at least one, maybe two voting relatives, right?
they have enough relatives in Florida that it'll
So,
count.
so
It'll
basically,
matter.
you just told a bunch of people that, you know,
Their dead relatives aren't real.
right. So they're going to, their vote is going to kill you. Like,
And if anyone listening is like, how did he kill them? Wasn't it the hurricane? Here's the thing: the hurricane killed some people, but the thousands that died happened because there was no power for a year. There was no emergency services for almost a year. They never got any supplies, and all that stuff happened because Trump declared it mission accomplished, gave
Yeah.
himself an A plus, and waddled away. And he told everyone in the world that it's fine, everything's perfect there, and so nobody knew to actually go and help them out.
Yeah.
Nobody that could actually do it. So, and also uh, he blocked people from being able to go and help them. And what he should have done is call in the National Guard to go and help them and give them relief
Yeah.
and help prop them back up and give them first. But do you know what he used? He did call in the National Guard along that time. But do you know what he called them in for?
We had to go, and this actually segues into my next segment. Yeah, we had to go arrest some brown children.
Yeah, he sent the National Guard to the fucking southern border because on Fox News they had some fear porn about caravans of Mexicans coming at the border. It's not real. It's just some weird Fox News bullshit to scare old people. But there's one old person that was watching Fox News that could actually do something about it. But the one thing he's not going to do about it is send the freaking... Anyway, go on with your
what
part.
they're doing on the border right now is they're actually trying to get, I believe it's M9 Reaper drones at the U.S.-Mexico border, right? So the Reaper drones are the deadly, like, we're going to fly these in and blow up, Al-Qaeda. We're going to blow up ISIS with these, right?
Yes.
In the article, it says they're best known for the devastating bombing and targeted killing campaigns in the never-ending war on terror. So the other thing about these drones is they're very expensive to operate, and they've shown that, like, just regular border security is far more efficient and cost-effective, right? So what scares me about our road to complete fascism is now if you've got, like, drones at the southern border and you've got a fascist dictator, now you can't leave the country.
Yep.
Like, drone strikes are a real thing. And the idea that we're going to
that-
be flying, like, armed drones
That's
over
partially what's happening in North Korea. If anyone tries to leave there, the military kills them.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have military drones that can just bomb people whenever they try to leave.
Yeah, and their whole, like, oh, it's for safety, it's to stop. Like, the other thing, too, is if you have
of course, they're not going to say what it's actually for. They're going to give the nicest possible explanation for what it's there for, and then just kill people.
It's useless, we don't need it, but it's just another thing. And like, what happens when they slam the borders closed? Like, the economy collapses, everything goes to shit. Oh, guess what? Now you can't leave because they're fucking drones, expensive Reaper drones on the border. It's that kind of stuff that terrifies me, and I wish would get more people out of bed and going, wait. I don't care what political affiliation I am. I don't want murder drones flying on U.S. soil just patrolling,
Yeah, well, luckily, Trump's people are smaller and smaller by the day. Did you know that according to some very accurate polls, a lot of them that just came out recently, his approval rating has actually shrunk to 36%?
Well, that's what we said. He'll probably hang on to that 35, 36, but he'll never get lower than that.
I mean, it's been hovering around 41 to maybe 38 for a while now, but it's finally like shrinking below that threshold. It even looked like it was growing for a while there, just because people had become so used to his insanity. This means that he's finally escalated the insanity to a point in which once more it's becoming a thorn in people's side.
I do hope.
Now, of course, he is definitely going to hold on to around 35%, but we're getting so close to that bottomed out 35%, only the hopeless people will still follow him number.
Well, what scares me too is if we don't remove him before we can't remove him. You know what I mean? Before the coup of the government is complete and he dissolves Congress or whatever it is that, like, crazy people do. I mean, I'm really happy that, like, Steve Bannon's not still there. Like, he's gotten rid of a lot of the more dangerous people that were intelligent that, like, were in the government, There's still a lot of dangerous people there, but, like, not a lot of thinkers in that group,
Yeah, just, man. So, another thing I'm worried about is that no one's actually going to really pay for all of these crimes going on. Going back to Paul Manafort right quick, because he flipped, that means he might be facing a much more reduced sentence. So what happens when everyone under Trump flips? They all get like 6 months in prison, and then Trump himself is invincible. Keep in mind, everyone listening, Trump is above the law. He is never doing prison time, not 1 minute in jail. He might be removed from power, or he might be dictator for life. We'll find out.
I think it looks increasingly unlikely that he would be dictator for life, but also
it looks like no one is going to actually be punished for this, right? Because if everyone flips up and it all goes up to Trump, and now all the dirt is on him, 100% of it, and he's invincible against repercussions, so it just pitters out, and the whole investigation falls apart because it's like we got him with ironclad evidence, and it doesn't matter because he's president.
Well, people.
Sad.
The problem is, like people thought that Hitler was a joke too. That that whole thing, and he ended up like hanging on to power. So the danger still exists, but it does look like he is increasingly losing his hold on power. He does not have the support of the American public. But at the same time, all it takes is the right set of events. I mean, remember George W. Bush's approval ratings were like in the 90s after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
takes.
he had 91% approval ratings after 9/11.
Yeah.
He could do anything he wanted.
And he chose
and
the
people
worst
would
thing in the
support it.
world. So
Yeah.
so Bush's choices post 9/11 remind me a lot of my epic rants about rich people. How like they have like infinite money and they can do anything in the world. What do? They buy like 6 Lamborghinis.
Yeah. I mean,
Or in Bush's case, started an endless foreign war in a country that he did not understand, nor was it necessary to start a war, and lost thousands, millions of lives.
I mean, I'd already said that if I had the money for it, at least once I would go out and what are those things called where you like fling a disc into the air and then you like shoot it with a shotgun?
Skeet shooting?
Skeet shooting. I'd want to skeet shoot mansions, like have just a series of mansions, like 5, 6, 7 of them, and have like a giant robot arm just hurl a mansion up into the air, and then I'd shoot it out of the air with like a battle tank or something.
I think
or
I would try to go
huge
take over
warship.
I'd try to go take over a small country and turn it into my own personal Wakanda. Like I'd be like, all right, look, things are gonna change. I'm gonna be a 10-year dictator, but after that, we're going to free and democratic elections. We're gonna fix the economy. We're gonna get some super. Oh my God, I sound like Trump, don't I?
It's gonna be tremendous.
It's gonna be
folks.
tremendous. We're gonna get the best
Really,
technology.
really big,
We're gonna
really,
have the
really
best
wet.
schools.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe my plan wouldn't work. Maybe I could find a willing country that would elect me for like an 8-year stretch and just let me use my money to turn them into Wakanda.
Wakanda forever.
Probably wouldn't work very well. I think I would be dead and all my money would be stolen by autocrats, as often
Probably.
happens. Yeah, so,
So
Manafort's...
there is
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was also going to be on Manafort.
Yeah, I was going to say, so he's
So-
pleading, but we don't really know what he's pleading, right?
We oh god, I have so much stuff on this now because it was still like more stuff was coming out as we were preparing for the podcast. Let's see. He is agreeing to cooperate on quote any and all matters as to which the government deems relevant. That means he's giving up everyone.
Well, I think it's
And,
because he's
this
going
is
to go to
some-
jail and Russia's going to kill him. Like, I don't know why they
Probably.
haven't tried already.
Yeah, he has just surrendered a series of things to a forfeiture agreement, including, and this is fun, his apartment in Trump Tower, which means if he wanted to, Mueller can now go and live in Trump Tower free of charge,
I
just
would
to mess with Trump.
I would enjoy that. I think that would be great. I can't imagine Mueller doing something like, because like Mueller's like, what's so terrifying about him is he's so quiet and plotting and methodical, and he never makes a news statement. And like, I've never heard the man speak.
I've only heard him in that one SNL sketch, and I don't think that was actually him.
Yeah, I don't think that
That's-
was. I don't think that was really Mueller. What I'm
No,
really
here's
annoyed.
something-
Go ahead.
Here's something that George Takei though said about Manafort.
He
and
said.
I'm-
He said, "Oh my."
Oh my. In honor of his Star Trekkiness, I'm going to read this in William Shatner's voice.
All right.
It bears noting that Manafort picked Pence as VP. Pence picked the transition team, including Michael Flynn, and publicly and vigorously denied Russian infiltration of the Trump camp, while the guy who picked him was actually a Russian asset. I wonder what Manafort knows about Pence. Oh my.
What's crazy about Pence was in the beginning. So after the pussy tape leaked, right?
Yeah.
So everyone's telling Trump to hang it up. You're done. Telling him to quit. Stupid, old fat military wannabe, Bannon was like, "No, fuck this. We're not done yet." so Pence came out with a statement about not condoning it, and everyone's plan was to push Pence with Condoleezza Rice as his VP. He was ready to take over. Um,
Condi's not the worst.
I
She would not have made that bad a leader.
I think it should have been reversed. I think Condi should have run for president, and then Pence
Yes.
just go fuck off.
Oh wow, she actually. I don't know if she would have my vote because she's still a kind of terrible person.
I
But
think
at the
Condi.
same time, like compared to all these other monsters, she seems like a saint.
I think Condi could have won, and I think she could have won hard if she had run.
Hmm.
I mean, she's probably smart because she didn't. It was the same with Colin Powell. Colin Powell could have run and probably won. But I think that the people that should run or would do a better job are also smart enough to not run because it's a horrible
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that goes back to Plato's Republic. The people that make the best leaders will never stand up and try to become a leader because they'll not see themselves worthy of such a role.
Yeah, I think that's why we need to change the voting process. We need to find the person who least wants to be, and we can't let people pretend that they don't want to be president. Like, oh no, okay, I'll take it. We gotta flip our
Dig
election
deep.
so that we vote for the person who least wants the job. I should say, you got to be qualified, but you also have to want it the least. Like we hunt you down and we make you be president for 4 years.
Yep.
So like you've got the experience, you know what I mean? You meet the qualifiers and you're like, I don't want it. Like stop, seriously, and we just chase you down and then everybody makes you be president.
Yep. Speaking of chasing people down, whether you want them to or not, did you hear about the Supreme Court guy?
God, so yeah,
I
I think I got it right. It's Brett Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh. I don't know.
I can't call
Kavanaugh.
him Brett Lasagna, but I think it's Kavanaugh.
I have him written down as Special K in my notes, but I have his. I
Well,
have
that's
his name
funny
in the
because I do
link.
believe that Special K is a date rape drug. So if you called him Special K, it probably wouldn't, you know.
Is it because that's a cereal also?
Yeah, yeah, no, you don't give them the cereal. It's a drug that makes people, pass out. Like, yeah, it's called Special K.
That's a cereal accusation, Peter.
It's a horse tranquilizer.
Yes.
So they all right. So on his merits, so the only merits I've heard from of him is they keep going. He's got a very lovely wife and daughter. He's a deacon
Yeah.
in the church. He coaches a girls basketball team, and I'm like, you know
They
what?
literally said that what makes him qualified to be a SCOTUS is that he drives his family around in a van or something.
Dude, I've known a lot of girls basketball coaches in my time as a human being, and none of them are qualified to be on the Supreme Court. I don't think a lot of them are qualified to be around children. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's some of them do sort of put off that vibe.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think we accepted it back then because we
'Cause-
were also teenagers
yeah.
whenever we knew them. So people that acted weird and pervy was like sort of normal to our young brain cognition of the world.
Yeah.
But nowadays we look back and we're like, oh my god, those people should be doing time.
Yeah, so they were gonna slam him home, and he was gonna tip the Supreme Court for the conservatives and trigger the libs for the rest of his life. So the reason that like Trump immediately was like, you know what, he's a very good man, tremendous, was because his opinions on can the president be convicted or tried for crimes was that the president that office elevates him above the law.
Yep.
So I think he was like, "That's tremendous. You know what? I don't want to go to jail. I'm gonna put Kavanaugh. Yes, Brett Kavanaugh on the
Brett
Supreme Court."
lasagna.
Yeah,
Lasagna.
and they were gonna
It's
ram
not as
him
good as a
home because they
cheeseburger.
had the votes. But he just gives out jobs. They didn't vet this dude.
They did not. See, that was the thing. That's the reason why the Democrats were complaining about him is because they weren't given any time to look at him at all, right? Like they were trying to ram him through as fast and hard as possible
Yeah.
because they know that after the midterms, the Democrats will have the power to block him. Right now, they can't block him if 100% of the Republicans vote for him.
Right.
But if we'd need 2 dissenting votes, normally we would just need 1 dissenting vote to stop him. But right now we need 2 because Mike Pence will go and be the tiebreaker. And also, have you noticed that the GOP is using nothing but the nuclear option? Normally you're supposed to pass things through the Senate with a 60 vote majority, right?
Yeah.
Not 51 vote majority. That's the nuclear option, and that is literally the only thing the GOP has been doing because they're a bunch of monsters, basically.
You know-
but they keep invoking that nuclear option because they can.
I saw something the other day, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I got kind of mad at this. It was they just had the Democratic primary in New York City, which, by the way, I couldn't vote in because somehow I registered as the Green Party. Now
Oh no.
I'm a big supporter of independent voting, but found out when I went to go vote that the Green Party's not even on the fucking ballot in New
That's
York. We're not even on the ballot. I might as well have not registered to vote because my vote literally counts for nothing because I'm not allowed to vote. Because
yeah. You can only vote for the party you're registered as in the primaries.
well,
So
some states have open primaries. I think all states should have open primaries. But even after the primary, so the Green Party candidates aren't even on the ballot.
uh,
Why didn't they tell me this when I go, yeah, I'm going to be Green Party?
you know the last Green Party candidate for president. It looks like she was a Russian plant.
Oh, great. So now I'm the freaking party of... I'm bringing back the Bull Moose Party. So the point I was trying to get at was there was a thing that said, this primary. Let's get rid of all the Democrats that worked with Republicans, and I go, no, that's the wrong way to go. Listen, you want
You want
Demo-
people.
you want Democrats that are willing to reach across the aisle. I don't like the other side of the aisle at this point because it's so far right, but you still need people that are willing to work with the other side.
They're so insanely far right that George Bush seems like a liberal.
I
cuck
can't
to them
believe that
these
he's
days.
weird old grandpa, and now they're like, look at this crazy liberal. Like, dude.
So, but back to Brett Kavanaugh, right quick. Does
Yeah.
look like he's a serial rapist. Like
Well,
because
I don't know
already
about
went.
so I don't know about serial rapists, but the story I've got says
It's
that
there's a rule of thumb that if you've sexually harassed one person, most likely you've done it multiple times.
it's like cockroaches. It's just like
Yes.
the one you see is just the tip of the iceberg because there's hundreds of other ones breeding inside your walls. You know what we
Yeah.
need? We need some kind of Orkin Man, like the way they used to have the Orkin Man commercials for like bugs in your house. We need one of those, but for serial rapists. Like he'll come and spray bug poison in their face.
I speaking of which, by which I mean the person that he did harass was probably outside the statute of limitations, and I bring that up to then bring back up Manafort right quick.
Yeah.
If the information he gives us isn't good, some people were saying, "Oh, well, wouldn't that put him over the statute of limitations for all the charges that they are going to drop in favor of charging him just for a few things instead of all of it?"
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, because whenever you do a plea deal, it locks everything that you could be charged with in time.
Nice.
So let's say the statute is another 2 years and he waits like 5 years and he's like, aha, I tricked you all. They're like, well, it's still, starting
Yeah.
right now, we still have 2 more years to charge you.
So, fascinatingly enough, legally too, once you've been convicted, so if they've convicted him of a crime but they have not sentenced him yet, so I thought about this because, I'd somehow, for some reason, I'd always thought I'd go to prison by this age, and I didn't know why. But, like, I always looked at the options, like, so what happens if you flee? So if you flee before you're convicted of the crime, you can use the statute of limitations, except some crimes have no statute of limitations. But if you go...
The statute only exists for how long they have to charge you. If you've
Right.
already been charged and you just flee before the trial, then
Yeah, or after the trial, if you flee before sentencing, those charges follow you forever, and you go to jail whenever they find you.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, but he's got nowhere to go. So this lady,
Womp womp.
this lady about Kavanaugh says she was in high school at the time, and she said that she accused Kavanaugh in the letter of holding her down and trying to force himself on her during a party before she got away. The details were I can't even talk. The details were first reported Friday by the New Yorker. The woman also claimed Kavanaugh was joined at the time by a friend who turned up music to conceal her protest, but the unnamed classmate reportedly told the New Yorker, I have no recollection of that. Of course you wouldn't want to recollect the time you tried to assist in the rape of another human being. Why would you be like, yeah, I remember that. That was at Joe's place. Yeah, we did not succeed, but God knows we tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so how is old Smiling Joe? That's what we used to call him.
So you'll enjoy this. So apparently Fox News obtained their own letter by women
I
who
bet
have
they
known
did.
Brett Kavanaugh for 35 years and said, for the entire time we have known him, he has behaved honorably and treated women with respect. We believe it is important to convey this information to the committee at this time. Okay, Fox, who wrote the letter? Because I'm going to guess that it was Lumpy.
Yeah, probably. A. And B, it doesn't matter how many people you didn't rape. It's how many people you did rape that matters.
Yeah, so if 35 people go, he never raped me, it's the one person that said I was raped that we need to focus on. You know,
Yeah.
just like you know, you hear people talk about serial murderers and they go, I lived next to the man for 10 years and you know he never killed me. Well, he's got skeletons in the basement, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter what you say.
Though with murders, people usually, are like, it's 10 years, never heard a peep from him. So it's so weird that he ended up. That's scary that he ended up being that way.
Yeah.
That's how these other women should be feeling right now. If it wasn't Lumpy that wrote the letter,
So here's the thing about this.
they should be like, wow, yeah, wow, I was living next to a ticking time bomb and didn't even realize it.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you know, they need to stop and investigate the legitimacy of this letter. They need that. Clearly, this is a sign that we need to stop and take a breath. And that's the thing. There should be. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if the justice is conservative or liberal. That doesn't matter. This is a very, very important thing, and it shouldn't be railroaded through. Like, it should be a candidate that no one really is in love with, but everybody can stand, and they think will do a really good impartial job on the bench.
Yep.
You know, like.
So that is what we need right now, and so we're just going to wait and see will the because here's the thing, let's say they do ram him through, and then a series of people, a series of victims start to come out and say, yeah, he tried to rape me too, or he did rape me, etc. When that starts to happen, then the GOP is going to have to answer for jamming this guy through too fast to vet him properly. And that's really not going to look good for any of them.
Well, we can remove him from the bench at that point, right?
I don't know.
He's
probably.
also like.
I mean, the SCOTUS isn't as hard to remove people from as the presidency.
Yeah. Well, he's
But
also like
I don't
perjured
know.
himself and whatnot. Like.
Yes, he has also committed crimes, so he is a criminal.
He's and he's lied about his opinions. Like, he's a bad pick. Like, even for a conservative justice, you could find a better conservative justice. Like, there are better people out there, even if they have conservative viewpoints than this guy. You know, and there's probably somebody out there that's more palatable for both of us, like conservatives and liberals. Like, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like we're in a weird place right now where you're demonized. Like I said, you know, they were like, we got to get back at these Republicans for, you know, or these Democrats in New York that worked with the Republicans. I'm like, listen, you shouldn't be demonizing people for working together. Like, you need to demonize the people that need to be demonized. But that's the problem is, like, we don't have any moderate, like, Republicans anymore. And we have very few, like, moderate, like, I would say we have very few moderate Democrats, but the problem is we're being pulled to the right. So, like,
I think the reason why it feels like we don't have any moderate Republicans is because they've all just become Democrats at this point.
Yes.
Because the Democrats in America are far more to the right
Yes.
than even the Republicans in other countries.
Yeah.
Like in Ireland, freaking Ireland, their Republicans are further to the left than our
right,
liberals.
yeah, exactly. So
So
we got to
basically,
rebalance that.
We don't. Yeah, so the Democratic blankets just sort of swallowed up a bunch of Republicans, and that's where we are these days.
So there's
And the only people that are still to the right are the ones that are insanely far to the right, because they exist only to say no to liberals and to say yes to Trump, and that puts them in a very awkward situation of just always being wrong.
Well,
so reality itself has a liberal bias to them.
we're in a very good place right now in that both Ted Cruz and Nunes may lose their seats in this next election.
Yeah, you know how we keep saying most likely the left is not going to win the Senate?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very conservative estimate and also a shitload of new polls are coming out because it's just now campaigning season and some beautiful things are starting to emerge. Tell them about it, Pete.
Yeah, well, it already looks like, and I can't remember the challenger, but they're having to divert money to from other campaigns to try to float Ted Cruz. He was begging for Trump to please support me. I'm Ted Cruz, or however his voice goes.
I'm Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Now you were spot on.
So he's in a fight now in Texas, which he theoretically shouldn't be. There's a guy that's gaining momentum that's trying to take Nunes' seat. So yeah, I would kind of like his biggest supporters to lose their seats. That would be fantastic. Even if they lose them to moderate Republicans, I would just like to see some sane people that aren't completely beholden to the president get into office.
Now here's going to be the actually let me tell you about two scenarios The latter of which delights me so much more. Now, let's say that let's say the left does take over the Senate, and so Mitch McConnell will lose his job, and he'll be replaced by Nancy Pelosi, right?
Right.
So at that point, she, as the majority leader, would be third in line to be president under Trump, who's probably going to be removed, Pence, who may be removed by Manafort flipping, and if they both go out at the same time, we're looking at President Nancy Pelosi. Which
That would be a
of course,
weird. Yeah, that's a weird bittersweet win getting Pelosi as president.
sort of, but here's the thing. Do you know, or did you know that Speaker does not have, Speaker, what's it called? The head of the Senate? It's not Speaker of the House, it'd be, so that's the, anyway.
I don't know politics, even though we do a politics podcast.
Well, anyway, you don't act. Majority leader does not have to be someone who is a current sitting senator. They can actually elect anyone they want to that role. So, what happens if instead of picking Nancy Pelosi for that role, they pick Hillary Clinton?
I think we'd have a
And
civil
then
war.
we end up.
I think we'd have a fucking
then we
civil
end up
war.
with President Hillary Clinton.
That would, and I like it. Look, I go back and forth on Hillary. I think she has. I mean, as far as presidents go, she's as qualified as anybody's ever run. Her problem, as we've said, is that she was unlikable
Demonized by the right.
because that Clinton name became a liability, right? Also, she's a woman, and this country is super misogynistic. I think if Hillary Clinton was a man, she would have won. Honestly, I think that
Yeah, she would have had a way bigger margin of people that.
And that sucks.
At least accept her.
That sucks because she's a woman. I mean, and you saw the things like in just the election that were so stupid. They're like, oh, she had a faint. She looks weak. I'm like, look at the fat sack of crap on the other side. This dude is like 400 pounds. What do you mean she looks bad? He can't even drink water. Like, you know what I mean?
love that one thing where he's like shaking with the water in both hands, and
yeah, how
he's
is
just,
that
like, barely able to drink from a glass?
How is that
And have you
not
heard
people looking at each other going, hey, you know that 25th Amendment? We really got to talk about that. This dude can't drink fucking water. Like, that's not healthy.
Yeah, and have you heard his speeches lately? We gotta find these Alama sources.
He keeps
okay,
slurring.
people?
How is that not bigger headlines? That's terrifying. If I was speaking and I started going, you know what, Patrick, today on those Muckrakers, like, and you're like, are you doing a voice? And I go, no, that's just how I talk sometimes. I'd go to the fucking doctor and be like, what's wrong with my brain?
Yep. But Trump's like, I got a very good brain. In fact, it's one of the best. Okay?
You know what? My brain
It's
is strong
tremendous.
as Jerusalem. And God bless America. Yeah, like...
And hot on the heels of Woodward's book revealing or showing people what we've known all along, that he's a dangerously incompetent individual, Trump decided to tell everyone that he is not incompetent by walking around with these stupid fucking lists, right, of bullet points. He started with 1 page of bullet points, and now he's up to 4 pages of bullet points, and he has them folded and in his pocket. He never reads any of them off, but he takes it out and he's like, look, people, okay, these are bullet points, and each of these bullet points is a thing, okay?
Remember,
and each one of these things are a thing that I did.
So,
some of them are really big things.
He's
okay?
so dumb, but at the same time, he has the most dangerous combination of dumb, but he's also praised to the point where he thinks that he has invented these things. Like when he was talking about the tropical storm that might have been a really bad hurricane that was going to hit the East Coast, he goes, it's tremendously big and tremendously wet. Hurricanes are big and wet, and we haven't seen a storm like this in a long time. It's tremendous. I'm like, really? Like, you're the kid on his paper, on his essay that writes, hurricanes, they're big and wet. Like, what?
Yeah. That's amazing because I actually have that written into my notes. Each one of these things is a really big thing, okay?
He said it like he was proud.
Like Hurricane Florence, tremendously wet.
No, like, you know, like, oh, we're going to, you know, make sure we take care of our people, and like, you know, it's a very dangerous storm, or just it's big and wet. Like that's your vocab. Like,
yeah.
Get out of here.
I mean, remember how he described Puerto Rico, right? It's an island, okay? It's surrounded by water, all right? Big water. Ocean water.
He's like the family dog who like brings you a dirty like shoe he found in the park with some vomit in it, and you just, you know, you're like, ooh, that's gross, but good boy, who's bringing me presents? Yay! So he thinks he did a good job.
Yep.
I find the best shoes in the park, okay? I found the best poop, the biggest and the stinkiest, okay? Like he's got
And they
yeah,
ate it delicious.
he's praised like a spoiled like family Labrador, like
Uh-huh.
um
Speaking of him being above the law, do you want to hear about another crime he's committed recently?
did he finally just like murder a prostitute on television and like he's now walking back the apology for that?
he So the FBI was going to move their one of their buildings, one of their headquarters, and he used his power as president to tell them, "No, you're keeping that building right where it is." And he did that because it was right across the street from one of his hotels, and he believes that it generates business for that hotel. So, yeah, he stopped the FBI from moving headquarters to generate more money for himself. And whenever people started asking questions about this, he furthered his official capacity to shut out any and all questions about this. But
He
now there's an official IG report out about it.
he reminds me like, oh my god, he's so bad he makes me wish for the days of J. Edgar Hoover, and I hate J. Edgar Hoover, but J. Edgar Hoover, this guy is J. Edgar Hoover's wet
It's the
dream,
Hoover Dam.
a president who you could just infinitely blackmail. Like Hoover's got to be rolling over his grave, going, "Oh, if only I was 100 years younger. If only I was 100 years younger." Like, man, he would love it. I don't know if I think Hoover would just end up manipulating Trump into like just arresting gay people. Because J. Edgar
Yep.
Hoover,
I mean, I'm sure Pence is trying to right now.
well, Edgar Hoover had this weird thing where he had files on all the anybody that was gay in Hollywood, and there's a theory that Edgar Hoover was definitely in the closet, and it was like he wanted to study them because he's like, "What am I?"
I mean, 100 years ago, yeah, that was basically people's stance towards gay people was, what is this new phenomenon? I don't
Yeah.
understand it.
Get files on them. I gotta know. I gotta masturbate to it. So the last thing, because I know we're getting close. I know you still got stuff on your list, but I wanted to talk about this because this is a
No,
story.
actually, that was the last thing on my list.
Good. So this is perfect. We can wrap it on this story. So this is a story
Sounds
that's
good.
making the rounds and it's making me very upset. A Dallas police officer, Amber Geiger, she was an off-duty Dallas police officer. She got off work.
Gotcha.
She goes home to her apartment complex, walks in to the wrong apartment, and shoots to death the person in the apartment. Now she said that like she thought she was in her apartment and she saw what she thought was an intruder and she shot him and that the door was ajar because they were like, well, how did your key work? He's like, oh, the door was ajar and I went in and it was on the wrong floor and everything. So one of the
That sounds like a dangerously incompetent individual who should be in prison
yeah.
right now.
So
How many years is she
she
doing?
shot Botham Shem Jean to death, and her story has changed. So first she said she went in, she saw somebody, she thought she was in her apartment, she shot him. Then she said he wasn't complying with her orders, so she shot him. She said the door was ajar, but that's not true because they went and looked at the doors in the apartment, the news agency, one of the news things, and it turns out they're very thick metal doors and they close and lock automatically behind you, as most apartment doors do.
Yep.
So there's no way his door would have been open. Also,
So she's changed her story like 6 times, as innocent people do. Go
yeah.
on.
So she's she did all that. She's clearly there's problems with her story. And like then they got a search warrant to search his apartment for drugs because the police are trying everything they can to get her off. She wasn't
Yeah.
immediately arrested. She had 3 days while they investigated the officer involved shooting. So she had 3 days to go home and get her story together. So then even the neighbors are like, we heard somebody banging on the door saying, "Let me in," and then we heard shots and heard, "Why would you do this to me?" So it sounds like there are two things that could have possibly happened. Best case scenario, this person, Amber Geiger, is such a terrible magoo of a police officer. She magooed her way into the wrong apartment, murdered a man, and then tried to blame it on him. And like I said, the cops searched his apartment for drugs because they're doing anything they can to justify it. Or
Right.
more than likely, she wanted this guy dead or is just a very incompetent racist murderer and just went in and shot him. I was like, oh, it's cool because this is Dallas and he's black and I'm white.
Mm.
But yeah, she needs to go to jail.
Most likely an affair she was trying to cover up with a bullet.
That was one of my theories. Yeah, was like there was a relationship between the two. But like it.
But hey, that's just a theory.
I mean,
A
Dallas is
homicide theory.
yeah, Dallas is notoriously terrible for this. Apparently in Texas,
But
according to the
that's
Washington.
not even the worst part.
What's the worst part?
The worst part is that a lot of the details, like the neighbors screaming, or the neighbors heard screaming, "Why would you do this?" and all that's being left out of the report they're typing up for the grand jury who will decide if this goes forward into trial or not.
Right.
So they're actually going to present a very sanitized version of this that does not have all the facts, and it may actually serve to help get her off.
Well, it makes me mad. So they say, the Washington Post, they said these details matter because in Texas, a police officer has the right to use deadly force when making an arrest if he or she reasonably believes it's either immediately necessary or if not doing so would create substantial risk that the person kills or seriously injures another. An officer has no duty to retreat first. Texas also has a stand your ground law allowing civilians to defend themselves against a threat, whether real or perceived, right?
Naturally, it's Texas. That's probably required.
So another
Did
cop.
you use your stand your ground today, son? No. Well, if you don't use it, then who will? Get out there and kill someone.
Use it or
You got
lose
a
it, buddy.
friend.
So the thing is, she was not making arrests. So none of these should count. She wasn't making an arrest. She wasn't pursuing a perpetrator. She had no capacity as an officer or as a civilian to stand her law, like at all, to stand her ground at all. There was absolutely no reason. This, at its best, is definitely manslaughter. At its worst, is premeditated murder.
Aye.
And like, it's frustrating, but there is some hope because
Well,
recently.
it sounds like maybe, like, at best case scenario, second degree murder instead of manslaughter.
Yeah, or whatever the Texas statute is, but she needs
Aye.
she needs to do time. There was another incident in Texas recently that gives me some hope, where two police officers showed up to the lamest house party ever. They showed up to this house party. It's a bunch of kids. There's no alcohol or drugs there, which makes it the worst party in the history of parties. They go, I guess, to break it up.
I
Like,
agree.
hey, you kids, stop sitting around and talking, or whatever kids do without drugs and alcohol. While they were
I haven't a clue.
while they're responding to this house party, there were some shots fired at the retirement home across the street.
Jesus.
So of course, shots fired. Everyone's like, ah! They're running away, freaking out. Some kids are driving away in a car. So he's freaking Officer Magoo goes and gets like his rifle out of the cop car and just starts shooting into the car that's driving away. Kills
the
a kid.
kids?
Yeah.
But that wasn't the person who's doing the shooting.
Well, I think as a cop, your first and probably most important job is to figure out what direction the bullets are coming from. Maybe not just fire indiscriminately.
I think the bullets are coming from your gun, officer. Maybe put it down.
So he recently, he was convicted and is doing real jail time, and like it was a victory in that like.
Was it a white kid that he shot?
No, it was a black kid and it was a white police officer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to say, there you go.
That's what's so impressive is that hasn't happened in Texas in 40 years. So
yeah,
it's the same with
someone
Amber.
doing jail time for shooting a black man.
Yeah, same with Amber Geiger. She's a white woman, and Gene was a black man. So like, it seems very unlikely that they will see justice for his murder. But I mean, there's hope. Like, she may actually be convicted, and you should be. Like, look, I'm not demonizing cops. I think cops suffer from a criminal lack of training and preparedness. A friend of mine wrote a big piece the other day. He was an ex-military. He wrote a big piece on the internet about how in the military, with military hardware, the rules of engagement were far stricter for active duty military personnel in a war zone than they are for police who also have military weapons. He was like, listen, if the kid's not pointing an AK at you and also firing it, you can't shoot them. If they have an AK, you can't shoot them. If they kind of wave it in your direction, you can't shoot them. You'll be prosecuted. But cops aren't even held to the same rules of engagement that soldiers are, and they have the same weapons. And that's what's so dangerous. Like, you need to be held to a better standard. You also need to be trained to a better standard. Nobody that has the instinct to shoot into a car full of kids should ever hold a badge.
Yep. That is insane that he would do that.
I'm 100% convinced that the only reason you and I are alive today is because when we were teenagers, we also happened to be white teenagers.
Yeah, because we were pulled over by the cops a lot back then.
I don't know if you were with us very specifically. We were pulled over once because we were dumb and we were into anime and like sword fighting. So we were driving around with just like a car full of swords. And
several times.
Yeah.
Like multiple times I was with you whenever you were pulled over in that van that looked like a van you should pull over, to be fair.
You should, yeah, you should pull over that van, but like they were always just weirded out that like, oh, it's them nerd kids again with their swords. But I remember one
Yeah.
time they pulled us all out and they kept asking us if we had weapons on us, and like we're wearing t-shirts and jeans, and we're like, where are we gonna hide weapons, dude? And then they were like, checking out the swords, I guess, to make sure we hadn't recently, like, cut down the king's men. I don't know, like,
Making sure they weren't coated in fresh blood.
yeah, I remember the one guy, the very specific old Georgia sheriff, was like, "What y'all doing with them Jap swords?" And I was like,
Mm.
"This guy was in the Pacific Theater. This guy's been some places." But yeah, but the only reason I think that they pulled us over and searched us instead of riddling the car with bullets was because we were white.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
every belief that we would have definitely gone to jail. I can definitely see the sheriff just taking the sword, stabbing himself with it, and going, "Officer down! Ah! He got me with his Jap sword."
Yeah, it's like I always said, is like, I can somewhat relate to African Americans saying that it feels like the cops are targeting them, because it definitely felt like that back then for us.
Yeah, be a
But then
teenager.
then you always point out, yeah, but imagine how much worse it would have been if we were black.
Yeah, so every
It's like,
time we got
yeah,
pulled over and hassled by the cops,
at least one of us would have died.
yeah, we didn't die because, cops didn't feel like we were a threat because we were white and nerds. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but I'll tell it real quick. I got pulled over one time in Georgia with a car load of guns. And so I got pulled over and I put my hands on the steering wheel and I very slowly told the officer, I said, "Officer, just so you know, I got a car load of guns." And
God, I've seen a video of a black man doing that, right? And the officer was like, "Oh my God!" and he shot the guy to death right in front of his wife and kid.
yeah, you know what the
And the
cop said?
daughter got out the back seat and she was crying and wandered off.
I said it to the cop probably in a worse way. I got a 12 gauge shotgun in the back. I've got a 38 police special over here on the passenger seat under this pile of laundry, and I got plenty of ammo for both. Probably shouldn't have said I got plenty of ammo for both like I'm bragging, right? But I'm not moving. He sees my hands. I am not moving. And I assumed he would go, "Please step out. We're going to have you come back here. We're going to look at the weapons." He just goes, "Are they loaded?" And I went, "No." Like I could have been lying. I wasn't, but I could have been, right? And he goes,
Right.
"That's fine." And just like takes my license and my registration, turns his back on me. Turns his back to a man that just goes, "I got enough ammo to kill a small village." And then just kind of jauntily walks back to the car to just check my registration. Just a little, just like a Mayberry, like little walk in his step, just like, "Well, I
Well,
reckon here." Yeah,
golly.
exactly. That to me, above anything else, proves that like this white privilege exists with the police department and in police situations. And someone goes, "Well, you probably weren't acting nervous like a threat." And I go, "Oh, I was acting nervous as a motherfucker." Like
Yeah.
he just
I was just
didn't.
pulled over with a car full of guns.
Yeah.
Of course I'm nervous.
And that's the thing in Georgia, though. They're legal, but you still don't know when you pull a cop over and you go, "I have deadly
when you
weapons."
pull a cop over.
Yeah. Or when you get pulled over by a cop in Georgia and you go, "I have deadly weapons to match yours." Like, you don't know how he's going to react, but you don't expect him to sing a jaunty tune and turn his back on you.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
Yeah.
Now let's see how you handle it.
And that's my whole point with that is like police officers need to be trained to a higher standard, and they've proven that you can train the implicit bias out of a person.
Yes, that has been shown, and it's also been shown that this systemic racism that exists in cops can be revealed to them, can be shown to them. They just have to be aware that it exists, aware that it's a real thing and not just some made up liberal talking point. And then once they're aware that it exists, you can explain to them how to see it in themselves, so that they're not going to be able to get rid of it entirely, but they'll be able to make major strides and
Right.
save many lives, including possibly their own. Like
And
that one cop that nearly let the killer go free because she was a woman, so he assumed, well, women don't shoot people. You're free to go, ma'am.
yeah, and that's the thing I'm saying, and I think that things get distorted is not all cops are like, "Hey man, let's go kill some brown people today. I tell you what, I love the Klan." Like
Yeah.
that's not the danger. The same way that like generally rapists aren't like Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh, Brett Lasagna. They're not slobbering like, "I'm going to hold you down in a room while my partner turns the music up." A lot of them are people that make bad decisions and they are unaware of the decisions they are making because of lack of training or lack of understanding. And that's what we need to fix. So when people are, you're just demonizing cops, I go, no, no, no. I want you to be better police officers. I don't want you to be in the situation where you have shot into a car full of kids. I want you to be better than that.
Yep.
And that's all I want. I want. I'd like to know that a cop can't just walk into my apartment on quote unquote accident and shoot me with impunity and go, he wasn't complying.
And there's one more thing I want to bring up since we're on this subject right now, and that's something I've mentioned to you several times, but I don't believe I've said it on the podcast. Is one of the people I follow on Facebook is a deplorable. I actually follow a bunch of deplorables.
Me too,
there.
because I want to know when they go, it's time, y'all. Let's get them libs. Drag one out of their house and kill them while they scream.
Yeah, I need like some kind of heads up to know. All right, well, Peter, we need to head to Canada now.
Yeah, because we can't go to the southern border because we got Reaper drones.
Exactly.
Canada.
Oh, Canada. We do know people in Canada. We could probably talk them into letting us live there.
Yeah, I'm more worried about getting across the border because I have visited Canada and they're very, and God bless them, they should be, because the Americans that are coming to Canada, they're bringing guns, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime.
They're rapists.
Yeah, they're not sending their best and brightest to Canada, especially when we go.
Not sending their best and brightest, folks.
Yeah.
They've got lots of problems.
Yes.
But anyway, so the story is of this deplorable. He posts this one goofy meme, as a lot of deplorables do. They find goofy memes that someone else made, and they're like, this seems like something I agree with.
Let's call it out. They post memes that Russians in the KGB made.
Yes, that has been proven, that has been shown. Freaking, what's her name? Samantha Bee did an in-depth investigation into this. She went to Russia. She met with the Russian propaganda maker. She interviewed them. They showed her the process of making the Russian propaganda and putting it out there. And she did all this in early 2016. We've been knowing about these Russian propaganda machines since way before the election
Here's what's
happened.
upsetting to me. I'm American, and I remember a time when our propaganda and our culture was second to none. That the Russians they didn't understand American culture. It was too cool for them. It was like really rich food when you've been standing in the bread line, right? We were awesome at it, man. No one had better propaganda than us. No one had better TV than us. And now we're getting left in the dust, man.
Yeah, it's really, to quote an American president, sad.
Yeah.
But so the goofy meme he posts says, so if black people don't want to get shot by the police, they just need to follow these simple rules. And it shows like two stick figures, one's wearing a police hat and the other one's a brown stick figure. And it like walks up to a police officer and then it starts humping him, and then the police officer shoots him, right?
Do you
After
feel...
saying, get off, you're failing to get off and then shoots him.
Do you feel, though, that is a reasonable use of deadly force? Because I don't.
That also is not a reasonable use of deadly force. That is correct. The person who's humping the cop in those stick figures is not armed. But never mind that. That's also, in fact, not at all what's going on, because I've seen two videos that proves an excellent point of just how wrong that meme is. One is a video of a cop asking someone to, sit down on the ground, put your hands behind your head, etc. But it's an autistic person he's telling to do this, and so the person does not this is someone who's like has severe autism. It's not like regular run-of-the-mill spectrum.
Well, autism is a spectrum, and
yes, it's a wide spectrum, and this particular person cannot understand the orders they're being told.
Right.
But the person has like a trainer that they're with, and
I don't think they're a trainer, but yeah, they have a for lack of a better word, they have like instructor or like minder or sort of like caretaker is probably a better word for that.
Caretaker. So, but the caretaker's black, and that's relevant in this story because, the caretaker seeing the police officer with a rifle pointed at his person, at his guy, is like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get down, put my hands behind my head, show the officer that I'm not a problem. You were called in because of a weapon, but this guy was just playing with toys. There's no weapons here, officer. My hands are behind my head. I'm complying. I'm face down. My hands are behind my head. I'm complying. And then, but the autistic guy will not sit or will not lay down, will not put his hands behind his head. He's sitting down, by the way, and he has no weapons. And then finally, what does the officer do? He shoots the black guy on the ground, whose hands are behind his head and who's saying, I'm complying, officer, I'm complying. And he looks up at the officer at that point, and he's like, "Why? Why did you shoot me?" And the officer looks him square in the eyes, and with all honesty replies, "I don't know, sir. I don't know."
Yeah, and that's a critical lack of training, and that's a critical lack of like the officer should have felt confident enough that he could de-escalate a situation without having to shoot somebody that was laying on the ground. Like,
But that's video number one. Video number two is a white guy in a McDonald's who's screaming, yelling at patrons. 6 police officers have come in to the McDonald's to ask him to calm down. And what does this guy do? Instead of calming down, he draws a fucking gun on these police officers. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, I've seen how this ends. He gets riddled full of bullets, right? No, they talk him down and eventually get him to put the gun back in his pocket and walk out the door and leave. He doesn't get arrested. He doesn't get killed. Even though he's screaming and waving a gun around at 6 police officers, they let him go.
yeah, and that's
So do
yeah.
you see how very, very different that is? A screaming, armed white guy who appears dangerous can leave. The black guy who is unarmed, on the ground, face down, hands behind his head, is shot.
And the thing is,
That is systemic racism, and that's how startling the difference can be. So take your goofy fucking meme and shove it up your ass.
and to be fair, white people are unjustly shot by the police too. So the point is, police
Yes, that
police injustice is bad for all of us. There was a video I think last year of a guy at a hotel.
happens, but but the 2 videos I described, I've never found the opposite versions
Right.
of the exact opposite, right? Exact comparable, like a black guy who's armed and yelling at a bunch of cops and they let him go.
Yeah.
A white guy who's completely helpless, has never done anything, is far away from weapons, no crime has been committed here, and then he's shot.
Well, I mean that's the story I'm about to tell you. It was a year or two ago. A
The
SWAT
guy at
team.
the hotel, right?
Yeah, SWAT team showed up at a hotel because someone had said, I saw somebody in the window with a gun. So, the SWAT team, you see it on their camera, they're moving down the hall. A guy and his girlfriend like walk out of their room, and the cops begin screaming contradictory commands at them to like get down on their knees, but also put their hands behind their head, but also crawl forward, and saying, if you don't do what I say, I will fucking kill you. And it's a white man and a white woman, and they are crying and they are trying to comply, and they're yelling at him like, get on, like, for all intents and purposes they could have been yelling the hokey pokey at him, you know what I mean? Like, it was so confusing, like, get down, lace your feet behind you on your knees, but put your hands behind your, don't fucking move, but now crawl forward. And so like the guy goes to crawl forward as the cop told him, by the way, there are 2 cops, they have assault weapons trained on the guy, he's clearly not armed. And as he begins to crawl forward, he puts his hand out so he can crawl on his hands, and the cop lights him up, kills him. And it turns out this cop like had excessive use of force stuff before. He had carved "you're fucked" on his gun butt, like on the butt of his rifle. This guy should have never been a police officer. Also, they should have, like, if someone's laying on the ground with their hands behind their head and their feet laced, I don't know, maybe
That's
have a protocol for putting cuffs on them instead of having them crawl towards you, but in a weird, like, contradictory way.
Yeah, I mean, but that's still a little bit different than the other situation, because this is a cop who clearly has a mental illness
Yeah.
that went untreated, because that's what the police do. They look out for one another and they won't let anything happen.
If you were really looking out for one another, you would make each other better cops.
I think so too. That's not how they define it, though.
Yeah, well,
But
that,
yes,
that
if
culture
you
needs to
really
change.
want, yes, that culture does. It really does.
Yeah, and that's what
But
we're
it can't-
saying.
But it can't change the way things are right now. That's why we have to change it for the better.
You can. That's
One
why I started.
podcast at a time.
That's why we started a podcast, because we're like, we're going to change the world and the lives of 3 or 4 people that tune in every week.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. Maybe let's get cops some more money. Let's sell all that stupid military hardware we're giving them and use that money to give them raises and better training.
Yeah. Did you know that federal employees aren't getting a raise next year?
Yeah, but one of the ladies in the Trump administration just spent like thousands of dollars on curtains for her house. So, who's?
Oh, okay. It balances out.
Yeah. Ben Carson spent millions on re-outfitting his apartment or his house. So, you know what I mean? Who's the real bad guy here? Probably those federal employees, because if they were, as our president said to the military, getting a basic cost of living raise, if they were really patriotic, they wouldn't take the raise.
Yes, that happened just this week. It was insane. That's a great way to pay people back on 9/11.
Yep.
If you're really patriotic, you wouldn't accept money. You would just you would live off of your own good deeds. Taste those good deeds, aren't they delicious?
I feel like if our president was really patriotic, he'd go stick his head in the ocean and try to breathe.
Yeah, he'd go take a long walk off a short pier.
Yeah,
Though he's probably too out of shape to make it halfway.
He'd have to take a short go-kart ride, a long go-kart ride off a short pier, because he couldn't make it.
Guys, there's a seagull. It's looking at me funny. It wants my cheeseburger.
You know what?
Melania!
Seagulls are tremendous.
Melanie!
Seagulls are tremendously greedy and tremendously feathery. That's good. That's good. What shape is this? That's a square. I'm a good boy.
Does a circle fit through a square? Yes. Wait. Yes.
It does. It does if you invert the company and move its headquarters to a lower tax haven.
Sad.
I think the new word instead of sad is like tremendous and wet.
Tremendously wet and tremendously big. Okay, ocean water. It's blue. Like the American flag. Oh my god! I saw this wonderful picture of Trump. He went to a classroom for some publicity stunt, or I don't know. And they have him coloring the American flag and he colors it wrong.
Well, I mean, come on, man. He stared at the sun during the eclipse when they specifically took... That's my favorite picture, and that's the one I will remember most when this is over and I'm old and they're like, hey, old man Van Pelt, can you tell us about the 45th president? And I'd be like, he stared at the goddamn sun. He just looked into the sun like a crazy person, and we let him keep being president. I don't know how he hasn't. I don't know how he's still alive.
I don't either. He really should have forgotten to breathe, and then whenever people are like, "Sir, your face is blue. You need to breathe or you'll die." Fake news, okay? You don't have to breathe.
You know, they said I wasn't breathing, but everyone says I'm the best at breathing. I breathe the most. My breaths are tremendously big and tremendously wet.
I bet they are. Oh, you gotta feel bad for all the women he's molested. Oh, the wet breath, Donald.
I don't know how he ties his shoes. Well, he doesn't tie his shoes. That's the thing. This is a guy that's been...
He has handlers that do that.
Yeah, this is a guy that has been kept alive by handlers his whole life, because I swear to God, if you released him on his own without anybody to, teach him how to do things for him, he would not survive.
Yeah, no, not at all. You know how that scenario that you bring up frequently is could you imagine putting someone in a desert and seeing how long they can last? With him, it's you could put him in a fully furnished house with food in the fridge and everything's functional and there's TV. And what would happen is he would find I don't know, God, what's his favorite snack outside of cheeseburgers?
He wouldn't be able to get into the fridge because he wouldn't figure out how to open it.
Yeah. You remember the Access Hollywood tape whenever he's trying to get off the bus and he knocks on the door and it doesn't open, and then whoever's behind him, Billy Bush, has to show him how to open the door?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, he's completely incompetent. I was about to say he would phone McDonald's to order a cheeseburger, but he wouldn't know how to use a phone.
He wouldn't know how to use a phone. He wouldn't know how to use a door.
He would tweet, at McDonald's, please send cheeseburger.
I have a theory that if you left him and a newborn baby alone in a house, I have a theory that the baby would live longer.
Probably.
Because the baby has basic survival instincts.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, just Trump would sit on the couch and he would stare at the blank TV and be like, Lumpy looks great today.
You know that he would do something.
The TV's not on.
He would do exactly like your Labrador you live in. He's like, I got scared, so I ate the couch. I didn't think you were ever coming back. It's been 5 minutes. I know, but time is a relative construct. Wait, what did you say? I don't know, but time is tremendously long and tremendously wet. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, we should have invoked the 25th Amendment when he stared at the sun. That's it. You know what I mean?
He stared at the goddamn sun and we let him keep being president.
Yep. That's going to be
Wonderful.
When I'm dying and I'm old and my brain no longer works and they're like, oh, Grandpa just shouts regular weird stuff. He keeps yelling about a man with golden hair staring at the sun.
I've seen things that would scare you shitless.
What? I imagine my last words are going to be some stuff like that great quote from Blade Runner where he's like, I've seen things you can't even imagine. Presidents so dumb they stared at the sun. Vice presidents that were totally gay but didn't know what gay was. And now all those memories will be lost like tears in the rain. Time to die.
We've had vice presidents that called their wives mother so that they could explain to themselves why they're hanging out with this strange woman who's not a man, and so they don't find them sexually attractive. Which is
I
absolutely fine, but maybe you shouldn't lash out at other gay people for being openly gay because you secretly wish that you could live their lifestyle.
I did read recently that his whole like I won't eat with anyone that's not my wife was started by
Hmm.
Billy Graham. You remember in the 80s when all these televangelists were getting caught having affairs? And Billy
Yeah.
Graham's like, "Oh man, I got to be above reproach. I won't ever be in the same room as a woman who's not my wife." There. You can't get me now. Like it was some weird
Ah,
cooties, you know what I mean?
gotcha. And he just went with that?
Yeah, so Pence is doing the same thing where he's like it's yeah, but I do think that it's just Pence doesn't like women and so that's really what it is. I think it's his gay cover story.
Yep. I think so too. But, what was I going to say? I'll probably stop the podcast further back there somewhere.
That's fine, man.
Definitely at or after the he stared at the goddamn sun because that was amazing.
Yeah,
But
that's the stupidest shit I've ever seen. So that's my whole theory. Like you tell him he can't do something and he immediately does it, right? Because he's dumb but he's obstinate. Oh my god, I'd be like next time we were at the ocean, I'd be like saltwater drinking contest, let's go, and like just see how much salt water you could get him to drink. You know, I would just be the
that
king
would
of
be
like
amazing.
I would just challenge him to
I'm
all
the
kinds of like little mini contests that would just make him sick. You know, like oh hey, let's see who can eat the
I'm the
most
best at
sand. One,
this.
two, three, go.
I'm the best at this. Many people are saying he'd probably just like make Eric eat the sand and then take credit for it.
At least I'd be getting back at him somehow. Eric, I want you to drink all the ocean water so Daddy can win a contest.
Okay, Daddy, I'll do it for you.
Dad, it's real salty. I don't like this. Bigly.
Actually, on second thought, maybe I will keep all this in.
That's what she said.
Uh,
All right. Well, depending on wherever we end on this, that's going to be this week's episode. I'm Pete,
and I'm Pat.
and you know, don't stare at the goddamn sun. It's not that hard.